views, thoughts, and opinions expressed through this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of the Department of Defense, the Defense Health Agency, the El Paso Market, and William Beaumont Army Medical Center. The material and information presented here is for the general information purposes only. William Beaumont Army Medical Center and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. Welcome back to another episode of This is Beaumont Med Talks. Today's episode, we're going to tackle down mental health, a very important subject that many of our listeners and our TRICARE beneficiaries are concerned about. And it's one of those hot topics that definitely deserves a good informational discussion on. Right, Vince?
Yeah, I think mental health has been a topic that's been, talked about, I want to say between the last 5 to 10 years. It's been discussed and more in the public. Back in the day, mental health used to be like, ooh, like that taboo subject you don't talk about.
Yeah, you and I come from that age where it was taboo that, and I'm going to say it, when I was in the ranks, it was like, you got to go see the witch doctor.
Yeah.
That's what they would say to us, right? Remember that?
Oh, you have to go to 11 West or to the special floor in the hospital.
Or the wizard. You got to go see the wizard.
Uh-huh.
So those type of terms and stereotypical ideals are now being squashed today. And we're very, very thankful for that because we got to get rid of those stereotypes. Seeking help is a strength, not a weakness.
Yes, and I think everybody deals with a little touch of mental health and trauma. No one's perfect, and I think if you just have the right tools to deal with it, and what we learned today, you can take with you and use in your everyday routine.
That's right. So when we come back after this quick PSA, we'll go ahead and interview our special guest, which is a professional medical behavioral health specialist here with William Beaumont. So after this message, we'll be right back.
When it comes to the overall health and readiness of our force, we often focus on physical well-being. We need to tackle mental health challenges and the everyday pressures and burdens that face our people. Mental health is health, period. We've got to treat all wounds, the ones that we can see and the ones that we can't. So here are a few things that everyone can do to help keep themselves healthy and to help their fellow service members. First, use our 24/7 confidential support resources. Please reach out through Military OneSource for non-crisis help such as relationship and financial challenges. If you or someone you know is experiencing suicidal thoughts, please call the Veterans and Military Crisis Line. There's help out there for service members, for veterans and their families, and we want you to get all the help that you need and deserve.
Welcome back to our podcast. Today we're talking about mental health because May is Mental Health Awareness. We have our special guest, Mr. Agacinski. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Paul Agacinski Vasquez. I'm the Deputy for Behavioral Health for William Beaumont.
Awesome. So we're here today to talk about certain things, a couple of topics. Mental health services placed in by the Brandon Act can be done immediately as soon as that's being requested, right? Or referred.
So the way it usually works is they'll come in for a triage.
Yeah.
We assess for services and levels of care. And there's other levels of care that are organic to the post, like MFLACs, chaplain services. And if the acuity doesn't meet our higher level of care, we try to get them to go through those and see if those problems are resolved. If not, those services, whether the MFLAC or chaplains, will refer to behavioral health, embedded behavioral health services or multi-Ds for higher levels of care. From there, we have another level of care called intensive outpatient care, both for substance abuse and mental health. From there, if there's crisis, there's inpatient psychiatric evaluation, which is now, we just opened here on the
Yeah,
third
we
floor.
just opened. And
Yeah.
how many beds do we have
Right now we have 6. We're hoping to open to 19 to 20 by November.
by the end of November? We hope so too. And we're always hiring, right?
This is
We're
correct.
always hiring for professionals to come and help treat service members and provide that type of mental help. And I mentioned earlier that mental health awareness is this month. What is the one thing that people should take away from mental health, being that it's mental health awareness?
Mental health is health. It's your overall health. It's physical health. It's emotional health. It's part of your spiritual health. It's taking care of yourself as a human being.
Right. And on our website, on the William Beaumont Army Medical Center website, we currently highlighted the mental health services as a carousel, and people can just click on it. It'll take them straight to our page where each of the units have an assigned embedded behavioral health office, right?
Yes.
And they have the direct number. So and again, as mentioned earlier, you don't need a referral at this moment. If you think you have a mental health crisis and you want to see the embedded behavioral health within your unit, just call the number displayed at your appropriate location, and you'll receive the services.
If they're in crisis, they can walk in or be escorted by their command. After hours, of course, they'll go to the Department of Emergency Medicine here at William Beaumont. We also have child services for families and their dependents.
Okay, so speaking of child services, can you tell us a little bit about your history providing those services with children?
I started my behavioral health, mental health career with the Army and family advocacy. From there, I moved into child adolescent care. And child adolescent care is working again with dependents from very young ages all the way to the ages of 18. It's all voluntary. It's working with their dependents. We also have here at Fort Bliss a marriage and family therapist that does couples and marriage counseling. We do a range of treatment. We also have clinicians in 2 of our schools that do school-based behavioral health, so they don't have to miss school or classes or anything like that. We do psychological testing, evaluations for autism, for EFMP, for the whole range of mental health for children and young adolescents.
And if I'm a parent, whether I'm a service member or a dependent, and I want to seek that type of help for my child, where do I go?
You would go to Child, Adolescent, Family Behavioral Health Services on 2497 Carrington. Mm-hmm. You may also call them at 915-742-1615.
Awesome. Easy peasy. I was reading an article this morning about how teens on social media is affecting teens, and it's like a crisis right now. How do you feel about that? What are your opinions on that?
I haven't read much on the articles. You have to look at the research and see where all research is coming from. I think today, in today's world, social media is a major event and part of teenagers' lives. When we were growing up, we knew about bullying. We never heard of cyberbullying, and that is a very significant issue. And how is social media impacting our teenagers, not just by the peer pressures and things like that, but also by predators and what's happening with them, with predators and all the exposure they're getting to all the awesome things in life and all the horrible things in life. It's hard to filter all that out for our teens whose brains are still developing, whose level of maturity and experience may not be ready to see some of the things that they're seeing.
You're correct. According to this news article on NBCnews.com, it says that up to 95% of teens between the ages of 13 and 17 say they use social media. They use a social media platform. And about a third say they're scrolling, posting, and otherwise engaged with social media almost constantly. So we have to be wary. I'm a parent of 2 teenage boys. I know Vince has 1 teenage son, right?
Yeah, I have one teenage son and a older daughter that's about to graduate UTEP here. So, and my youngest. But with this day and age, the young kids start picking up social media and they're trying to like at a young age. So I think we have to be proactive and get ahead of the curve with just electronics, social media, and just everything.
Exploring more social media and mental health as well. And what are the effects? Well, what is the influence of social media compared to what they're receiving and understanding versus the influence of parents and family? So there's a lot more research needing to be done.
Yeah.
But I think being cautionary and observant with our children
Yeah.
is very important.
What's
Absolutely.
some tips you can give us just to be proactive when it comes to kids with with mental health and teaching them? And when you think, from your opinion, we need to induce mental health into the everyday? Like, hey, this is what mental health is. This is what you need to do for your your mental health awareness.
Just something we kind of were talking offline is spending time with children offline, going to a park, getting outdoors, doing sports, and just engaging with the kids one-on-one. Too often I see family time and us as adults are on the phones texting and looking at things.
Guilty.
And the kids are off
Guilty.
doing other things, right? And so we have to have that interaction, because mental health is, what are we modeling? What is it that they're going to learn? Because it's never going to be do as I say, not as I do. They're always going to observe what we do, and then they start to mimic behavior. And so at first it's hard to break down and take away the phone, and no phones at the dinner table, making sure we are eating dinner together, making sure we're going for a walk or a ride or a bicycle ride, the bowling like you mentioned.
Yeah, I was mentioning that we were talking offline. I love bowling.
Me too.
Because his location where the mental health services is at is across the bowling alley. We're on Fort Bliss. So
What headquarters is that?
yeah, the headquarters. So I was like, "Ooh, I love the bowling alley. That's one of I know exactly where that is because I
That's
go
a
there
great
as much
lunch
as I
spot.
can."
Yeah, that's a great lunch spot.
Because
Yeah.
mental health is, how are we taking care of ourselves holistically, all the way around? What we eat, what we exercise, how much sleep we get.
Correct. Agree.
What are we reading and looking and exposing ourselves to as adults and as children? Limiting screen time, which is, that's a hard one, because we come home and we're tired and we just want some me time. But if we got kids, then we have to do kid time. And so all of those different things help the kids and help us. There's so much input from a phone. Some of us have two phones. When I get home, I turn off my government phone by 1800. My colonel has my personal number in case of emergency, but then my phone goes into do not disturb mode around 2100. And that's just, I spend my evenings cooking with my wife or going for a walk. We have programs we watch, but a lot of it is engaging and talking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think the more we do that,
So the bottom line is put the phone down.
right? Because
Close the screen.
right, communicating with yourself and the other ones you love around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I got out the military a couple years ago, I really took that holistic approach, and I started taking up meditation and doing other things, and I really loved it. It helped my mental health so much, and I was telling other friends, like, you might take the holistic approach and just think about just something simple, just meditating, and they laughed at me like, "Oh, you meditate?" I'm like, "Yes." You'd be surprised how you just sit somewhere and just have your thoughts and just breathe, how relaxing that is and how good that helps your mental health.
Yeah, it does. I mean, having that connection to energy, to things that are alive around you. Breathing and getting in touch internally. I've read a report not too long ago, TikTok, that was created in China. The Chinese have 45 minutes of TikTok, the children, a day.
Oh, like each video is 45 minutes?
No. Their TikTok time is 45 minutes.
Oh, like that's a law or the parents do that?
No, that's China. That's the law. And it's more educational, scientific.
STEM, yeah.
Wow, I did not know that. Where did you get this data from?
I can't. it was a few months ago, and it just stuck with me. Like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So, what are we putting in to ourselves and to our children? And that's really important. Is where are we going to go? Yeah.
You limit
Just like
the screen time.
you could go to Harvard or you could go to your state university, but a lot of it's going to depend on what you get out of it,
Exactly.
which is what you put into it. So,
I agree. And part of this article too mentioned that the reason that social media is so part of the problem, not just because we're on it all the time, which leads teens to think that they're being isolated or excluded. Like they see something that they scrolled upon and they feel left out, or they feel alone. What are your thoughts on that? People feeling like they're alone, exacerbating that feeling.
so teens are, they're in such rapid stages of development and change, physically, hormonally, emotionally, mentally, and yes, they're trying to feel part of the group. So there is that component, but I also see all the distractions, social media, everything that's out there to distract from ourselves.
Oh, yes.
Because when you look at when COVID happened, there was like mental health blew up because people were stressed out, depressed, because I see it a lot with,
Couldn't leave your house.
Yeah.
and so if you're not happy with this in here, you look for multiple distractions. Television, social media give you a lot of that. Consumerism, drugs, alcohol are all distractions from self. And so if the kids are seeing that and they don't have their sense of identity and they're developing that as children, they're going to freak out even more, especially when their peer groups are identifying with that. But then peer groups are dangerous, right? Because what can happen with, there's good things in support systems, but then there's some pretty horrible things that happen in peer groups. So the more we develop our children to have their sense of own identity, they can make better choices when they're out there, and we're like stressing, are they going to make the right choice? And a lot of that has to do with where's their self-esteem, where's their own personal development. And so I saw that, and I see that, soldiers find ways. Well, the Army makes it easy for people to stay busy. And then when soldiers come to a school or something where they have to slow down and all their stuff starts to bubble up, that's when they start coming to see me, because they start going into crisis and
Oh, wow.
and struggling because, wait, I'm not as busy as I was, and now I have all this stuff
Yes.
from
yes.
deployments, from all these things that happen.
It
from
starts to
MST.
manifest.
Yeah.
Right.
I can totally see that. It makes a lot of sense.
I can relate. My transition, it was like that. Like I was so busy, constantly moving, being in deployments, NTC training, and when I transitioned out, it was like I was just lost. I had to find things to keep myself busy, and besides driving my family crazy. And so once I started going to school and start working, everybody was happy. My kids was happy. My wife was happy. I'm like, yes, you're back busy. But I had to find things to replace that, the military structure of, okay, I'm not training, I'm not going to NTC. And I went to go see some therapists and the VA program. I went to go talk to some people, and, they gave me recommendations. But yeah, I had to find that void. It was void missing.
And we are identifying transition as a stressor.
You are?
Yes, because
When you say we, are you saying like it's part of it's within your office, or?
Colonel Lyons and I, and certain meetings we've been to, I think there's some other outside research on transition. Because one thing I've always identified is that change, whether it be good and welcome, creates stress.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
And resistance.
Yes, it does.
And we joke around that when you've been a lifer and you get out of the military, you got to learn how to go shopping for clothes.
Yes.
It sounds like a joke, but it's a stress, like learning to mix and match.
I know, right? You've been wearing a uniform for 20 years.
No thought.
You didn't have to
Yeah.
think about what you're going to wear. It's right there.
Pick color socks for a
Right.
chance. Yeah.
But all of a sudden, you're not wearing it, and now you're like, oh, I have to choose a shirt.
Yeah.
You can't get away with just a PT shirt
Right.
No.
and your running shoes and jeans.
Something that
anymore.
for most of us, it's not even a thing. It's just something we do now.
Yeah.
But for somebody transitioning, it's like, oh my Lord.
With
Yeah,
me, it
it's-
was my kids. So I had to learn how to get her ready for school. Because me and my wife, we switched roles. I was transitioning out, and she started back into the workforce and building her career. So I was taking my daughter to school and doing a 5-year-old's hair, 5 and 6-year-old hair in the morning, and she's a little girl too. Then getting her ready, grabbing her lunch. Sometimes the teachers be like, "You got it, Dad. You got it, Dad."
Encouragement.
Good
Yeah,
job.
encouraged me. Good job. And my wife just would laugh, but it was a struggle. I got into the system and used some of them tools I was taught and learned, and everybody got on one page, and we all woke up at 6:00, and we were out the door at a certain time, and the kids got used to it. Then me and my wife switched roles again, and it was like, okay, when Dad's coming back. Yeah.
Aw,
So
they miss Dad.
they missed me. My daughter did. So it was a struggle though. That learning how to just do simple things like, okay, I'm taking her to school. I'm driving in school traffic. I'm not used to it. I'm getting out. I'm walking her to class. I'm so used to being, a leader and having soldiers and being independent. And my wife was like, no, you don't have that now. You got to get out. You got to walk her to class. You got to be nice. You got to stop having that mean face. Speak to the teachers. Speak to the parents. Get into the mood. And it took some time. It was a hard transition, but it took some time. And
that can create doubt and fear
Oh, yeah.
and all kinds of other issues. So understanding that also, like, when you look at the young people that join the military, rarely do we look at where do they come from.
Oh, that's true.
What is
That's
their
been a
background?
topic that I also read about that is something that's being considered because recruitment is kind of hurting right now. And that's one of the things that recruiters kind of mention. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the generation that we're having to see if whether they want to come in or not.
Because I see it, we forget as grown adults that when we were young, how lost were we when we joined the military, whether we came from a healthy family background or not. And if you take somebody who's kind of lost their first 2-3 years in the military, somebody who may have come from foster care or homelessness or substance abuse or domestic violence or any number of other issues, that's another layer. And they're trying to suck it up and mimic their sergeants and their NCOs. But then sometimes we forget, oh, I was there. And so what are we doing to mentor these healthy behaviors, mentor healthy relationships? Because that's the other thing, right?
Yeah.
The young kids get involved in relationships and all kinds of things go sideways. And it happens.
Yeah.
It's not, exclusive to the military. It happens in the civilian world. So I think the more we understand what the social backgrounds are, again, the holistic approach of what are we looking at when we're looking at a soldier today, and where do they come from?
Yeah.
Is this something that you help commanders understand when they know that a soldier came to you or a referral was put through, and they're probably wondering, well, is this soldier going to be ready for deployment or not? Is that something that you mentioned?
So the 3822, the Command-Directed Behavioral Health Evaluation, that's where a commander can ask us that question to be answered: is this person ready for deployment? Sometimes they'll take them anyway, because they have to, they're looking at a battlefield. They're looking at what their numbers are and what they need to take with them, and all kinds of.
Right, they're getting ready to go to war. Yeah.
And so, even if we will always give them our best recommendations, especially if the soldiers are stable. We'll always tell them what we believe needs to happen. They will make their choices from there. I think the struggles are understanding what that is. I was in a meeting recently, and it was unfortunately it had to do with a suicide, and they were talking about how in this faith suicide is taboo, and they're talking higher levels of thinking and processing. Because they're senior leaders, they've done a lot of problem solving. And that's where I think there's a gap, and we need to make more connections about lower enlisted, again, based on where they're coming from and looking at them holistically. don't have those problem solving skills yet, don't have
That's
that
true.
forward
They're
thinking.
still kids.
Yep.
Yeah, they're still developing.
You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, suicide may be a taboo, but so is premarital sex in some religions. So that's not stopping anybody.
Right.
And so we have to really look and understand what's happening. And you're right. I mean, we're from something like 40% under recruitment.
Mhm.
And, you know, it's a societal issue because, you have also on the civilian side, you have a generation of kids that are failure to launch and, still at home at 25, haven't started school, haven't done anything.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know.
Tell me about it. Yeah.
It's not bad. Come on. Like, if they want to stay with their mom while they're going to college, it's a helpful thing.
Oh, yes. And that's also a cultural thing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but
I'm
failure to
Hispanic.
launch is that.
Oh, yeah.
The failure of launch is that they're like at home watching YouTube and struggling to get out into the world.
I think it's this generation grew up with, and my daughter told me that we sat down and had a real depth conversation because now she's in college and she sees the whole different spectrum, and she told me, Dad, my generation grew up on electronics, cell phone, internet.
Yeah, we didn't grow up with that stuff.
And she said you didn't grow up with that. Like you were outside from probably since you can start walking until now, running in the grass, playing with farm animals, riding, playing football. And I wasn't like that. I grew up on inside the house, playing with electronics and stuff. And she said that has a lot to do with my, social abilities and everything else. And it affects me sometimes because, she said, she compares me. I see you and you're very energetic. You have social skills. You can talk to anybody. Somebody walks up to you. And I said, well, baby, I was in the military too. So that taught me a lot of tools to be interactive. And she just was saying the comparisons were very, different and how she's learning now because she was taking a psych class and she was saying, I see how things are and analyzing stuff. And I said, well, I'm glad you're using the tools in class, but it's a different sides of the plane. And she just was explaining it to me how, she said when you came in, because I talk about a mentor I had when I came in, we came from the same background and that social and ethnic background. We were from the same state, and he kind of took me under his wing. And through my military career, I can rely on him, call him for anything. And I think these young soldiers are lacking more mentors like that can help them grow through their career. Then they can fall back on and whip them in line and get them in shape. Not necessarily yell at them, but just talk to them and say, hey, this is the path you need to take.
I've always thought about a mentoring program with this, healthy leaders and young soldiers to help them learn to cope and develop resiliency skills, and that the Army is a different animal, it's a different world than the civilian side of things.
Oh, yes, totally different.
Yep. So, we're at our time now. So, what is your number one thing that you want to take away for our listeners? What do you want to say when closing with this mental health awareness podcast?
Mental health, again, it is health. It's if you take care of your mind, you start taking care more of your body, of your social aspect, your holistic self. You start being aware of yourself and appreciating your faults and your strength. Good self-esteem is that embracing your strengths as well as your weaknesses and your faults and your failures. And that's what makes us, is that totality, that holistic sense of self. But it takes effort. It takes time with yourself, not on a screen.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming out today to the podcast and sharing your wisdom with your infinite experience of what you've done here on Post.
Oh, yes, I learned a lot. Thank you.
So if closing with this podcast, while we go to our next PSA, I just want to say, check out our website for mental health services here on Fort Bliss at williamboma.tricare.mil. Thank you.
Mental health is just as important as any other kind of health. If you or someone you know is struggling, help is available. TRICARE covers mental health services, including telehealth. You have options for where and how to get medical and non-medical mental health care, including services through Military OneSource. And remember, you don't have to go through it alone. You can learn more at www.tricare.mil/mental health.
Welcome back to William Beaumont Med Talks. That was a very interesting interview, don't you think so, Vince?
Yes, I liked it. It was very open, honest. We shared a lot of stories, a lot of tricks of the trade about mental health. I learned a lot as usual, and I hope our listeners learned a lot.
I hope so too. The way that I mentioned on our website, we have our mental health services, phone numbers, locations for every single unit on post, and we also have information on there for anyone that is not an Army soldier, for all service members and their families, even civilians if they need some assistance with mental health services on post. And our website gives it all the information that you need. Also wanted to say that, I'm not on social media all the time, but I am on Amazon a lot. But that's definitely something that the doctor wanted to emphasize, is put our screens down and start doing more face-to-face to help our mental health increase and make it better.
And speaking of social media, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe. Please follow, like, and subscribe. We're on YouTube. Follow the William Beaumont Facebook page. We're on Instagram also too. And just follow, like, and subscribe.
Yeah, all the stuff that we post is not going to keep you on social media, but it is very informational for sure. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you the next time on the next episode. Have a nice day.